During the 60s, the rock and roll years, we had a lot of dance halls in Rugby, a jazz club, coffee bar, milk bars. We used to spend a few hours on a Saturday getting ready to go out. Full skirts, net petticoats, kitten-heeled shoes with pointed toes, winkle pickers. Took you a long while to do your hair, you know, big hair, bouffant hair. To keep our net petticoats nice and stiff, we used to boil them up in sugar and water, leave them to dry, and of course the sugar would make them really stiff. During the summer, you just stayed away from wasps because they would love you. Sunday mornings I went to children's church at St Matthew's School. The vicar's wife used to sit at the front, and she was constantly going, shh, 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 which made us worse, of course. And then in the afternoon, I used to go to Westlands Girls' School, to Sunday school, which I think most of us hated, but it was the thing that most children did. After they let us out, we used to mess around on the way home, so that was the best bit of the day. Later, when I was a teenager, I went to St Matthew's Church in the evening with my friend. But it was a ploy because both her mum and my mum would let us go to church on a Sunday evening. And then we used to listen for the motorbikes whizzing along Warwick Street of the lads that came from Brandon. And they used to go to St Mary's Youth Club. So we used to listen for them, creep out of church, and then go down to St Mary's Youth Club. And for quite a long while, our parents didn't know, until one day my mum phoned her mum up and said, "Is Carol there?" "No." "Oh, that's where she told me she was this evening." It wasn't the thing to go to youth clubs on a Sunday evening, or to the pictures, or to anything else really, but we did, and just hope we didn't get found out. My first job was as an apprentice hairdresser, and I worked at the House of Bennett in Rugby. The boss was a hard taskmaster. If we weren't doing hair, we used to have to scrub the floors. We learned how to do beehives because that was the fashion at the time, and you just backcombed the hair up, lacquered it, and then combed it down so that you had a smooth outside to the hairdo, with pin curls and fringes, or French pleats were very fashionable. So you put a pleat in the back of the hair and then had the front all back combed up and over the... I remember the first hairdresser's ball I went to. He allowed us to have our hair done that afternoon in the salon, and I had mine black with blue streaks and glitter in my hair. Oh, beehives, the bigger the better, really. Some beehives were bigger than the person's head.
I was visiting my grandmother who lived in Cambridge Street, and just round the corner of the alley was an orchard. So with one of the other local boys, I went scrumping the apples, and we were chased away by the local policeman, who wasn't quite as fleet of foot as we were, and we managed to escape. Your thick ear. You would have got a thick ear. In my school days, we had a teacher, and if we're talking about discipline, yes, there was the cane. We had this teacher, Mr. Brooke, who had served in the Royal Flying Corps in the First World War, who used to regale us. He did us for PT, and when it was raining, he used to regale us with weird and wonderful stories about his life in the Royal Flying Corps. I'm sure most of it was made up, but he was very accurate with the board rubber. If you misbehaved, that would come flying across the classroom, either or the piece of chalk he'd got in his hand.
At Bloxham School, I was caught fighting in the corridor with a boy who'd pushed into the line. We were hauled in front of the top class, and the punishment was he got the slipper on his backside and I got a bundle of rulers on the back of my knees, which hurt. But you didn't cry because, you know, you had to brave it out and face it out. So discipline, all the teachers were very strict, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
I'm from India. When I first came to New Bilton, I was very interested to note that there was an Indian community centre and that there were a lot of people wearing saris. Their story is that they were either here as a result of Idi Amin in Uganda deported a huge number of Asians. The British government actually invited people from from East Africa and from India to come and work in the various factories. So it's very interesting for me to see this connection between rugby and very different parts of the world.
I was born during the war and many things were hard to get, though I was an only one. Lots of presents were mostly books, and I had a lot of annuals and a lot of film annuals from the comic book area that came out during the day. One of the presents that I've still got today, and I'm in my 70s, is what my mother bought me, and it's called Dress Dolly, and it has 12 pretty dresses and hats. This I enjoyed, and I used to take it everywhere with me. I had a lovely, lovely doll when I was 9 years old. This dolly, you have 4 dollies, and I must say they are Shirley Temple. So you can imagine what they are, cardboard, and the dresses of the everyday, even from the night clothes to they are done in paper. They also have little hats and the coats to go with them. You had 4 dollies, and each one was a joy to put the clothes on.
Okay, Christmas Day was very special. We'd wake up in the morning wondering what Father Christmas had bought us. A stocking at the end of the bed with an orange, apple and nuts in the toe, followed by, I always had a chocolate Father Christmas, always had an annual and a toy, maybe a doll that I'd chosen from the shop in Regent Street that Mum had put by for me for Christmas. She used to bring it home, put it on top of the wardrobe. I'd played with it before Christmas, and then it was a big surprise on Christmas Day. We always had turkey at Christmas. You didn't usually get turkey in the shops at any other time of year, so that was very special too. We looked after our toys. I had a doll that broke, so there was a doll's hospital in Chapel Street. I dutifully put the doll in my doll's pram and wheeled it down to Chapel Street, along with Mum, of course, who was going to pay for the operation. Left her there to be mended, and a week later, with all clothes washed, walked down to Chapel Street to regain my doll, who I was so upset that she'd had to go into hospital.
The delivery of beer to the Hollybush pub with the brewer's dray bin. This vehicle was like a small steamroller, steam driven, and they used it as the next step up from the old Shire horses that had previously drawn there. At the outbreak of the war in 1939, all the houses had to do blackout. You had the warden wandering around outside, shouting at you if you had a crack of light anywhere, put that light out. Everyone was issued with a gas mask, which came in a very nice brown cardboard box with a strap. And everywhere you went, you were supposed to carry your gas mask. But as time went on, people got very blasé about this, and the gas mask disappeared from the box, and you used it to carry your sandwiches when you went off to work in the morning. After a time, you found them quite funny and quite humorous, because when you were at school, all of a sudden they'd spring on you, you'd have a gas mask drill, and there's everybody scrabbling around for the gas mask and to get it on, and great hilarity and that sort of thing. At the time that I was at school, we had the 11 plus examination, and if you took the 11 plus exam and you passed, then you were eligible to go on to the grammar school. If you didn't pass, then you continued at school until you were 14, and you had to go and find employment somewhere.
During the war, when I had presents at Christmas, they were all made for me. My father got a doll's bed made for me, and my grandmother, she knitted all the clothes for the doll. I also had a farmyard made for me one Christmas, which was a chicken on like a table tennis bat, and it all clucked for you. There was lots of other wooden toys that were made for us. The boys that lived in the area, they also had a lot of toys made for them, which was always appreciated and also passed on.
The only recollection I've got about the war was I was only a toddler at the time, standing in the garden with my mother, waving to the gliders going over, which I think were probably being taken somewhere south for the D-Day landings. And I often think now, how many of those people came back, I wonder. Also, just after the war, or at the end of the war, I remember a carol service at church, and one side of the place was filled with these men in grey uniforms, which I later learnt were German prisoners of war that had come from Barbie camp. Other than that, I got little experience of the war. I don't remember the Blitz as such, although of course I did live through part of it.